All right, everybody, you're listening to Big Blend Radio with Nancy and Lisa, the publishers of BigBlendMagazines.com, which includes SuccessExpressMagazine.com. And we're very excited to have Kevin Greene joining us. He is the negotiating guy. Well, that's what we call him on Twitter, at Negotiating Guys. Go check him out there. Also go to his website, negotiatingtraining.com, because that's what he does. He trains people how to negotiate for better relationships and in business, and in life. I think his book is all about that, too, because it's a great book. Nancy and I have both been reading it. It's called iBreakthrough Negotiating. Discover how you can negotiate your way to greater overall success, personally and professionally, one agreement at a time. Now, that's positive stuff.
We should start with Comcast in our
Here we go. Don't. But I'm very excited. We've been reading the book, and I really like it because he actually has his own GPS guide inside his book. And, being a blonde, I need that. Kevin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, you guys. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm doing great.
Good. Always good to hear someone's doing great. And I think it's because when you think about business negotiations, you're talking about one agreement at a time, with your book. It seems it's more of a gain, win-win, have fun, and you're developing relationships more than a quick deal, right?
I think that's very true. I think that it's so easy for us to get caught up in the idea that negotiations are a collection of one-shot deals, but in reality, we make our success based on being able to do business with the same people over and over again. So you always have to look at the lifetime value of a relationship far more than the value of one specific outcome. I think you got to just look at everything in context. But I am a relationships first guy, and I think you can appropriately balance your desire for strong relationships with your desire to get the best deal you can every time.
Mm-hmm. The best deal every time. Now, I know when I first talked to you on the phone a few weeks back, and I was saying, well, growing up in Africa, there was, it's kind of like being in Mexico, too, where negotiations, like India, a friend of mine, she lived in India for many years, and she got into the carpet industry and rugs. And she said there, well, if you're going to buy rugs, you have to sit there for the whole day and drink tea, and you negotiate all day long. And so people think, okay, this is all just a money game. And it's back and forth. In reading your book, it's really interesting because you kind of go away from, negotiations. The money is really, that's kind of like the end part, not just, hey, let's just sit there and argue about money and the price.
Well, you're right, and there's so many other factors. I mean, it's so easy for us to get caught up on the money because that's always the thing that's the most obvious thing that we're concerned about when we enter into a negotiation, or at least, it most often is from a business perspective. But in reality, both parties always bring a whole other set of assets and needs into every encounter, and it's so amazing how often we ignore all those other things that we could talk about, which could make the deal much more valuable for both of us at the end of the day than if we were just to talk about money by itself.
Yeah, and you really focus on building value, and you even talk about having that hook, And I think sometimes, like you even talking there about, we leave money on the table a lot of the time in a negotiation. What do you think we do that? Is that a lack of self-confidence? Where does that happen?
That's really one of the central questions that the book seeks to answer, because I think it's something that hasn't been explored really well. But what's interesting for me is after having trained thousands of people in negotiation skills and been in thousands of consulting, not thousands, but hundreds of consulting encounters, one of the things that really started to stick out to me over and over again was how people, no matter, what part of the country they were from, no matter what business they were in, no matter what title they held, they all made the same mistakes over and over and over again. And so the consistency of those mistakes pointed to two major culprits, two major things that all of us have in common that really influence the way we negotiate. The first one is human nature. And almost all of us are conflict averse by our own nature. We tend to respond to conflict in, one of four ways. Sometimes you might respond to conflict by being on the defense, right? And you might attack the other party. Sometimes we want to compromise. Sometimes we want to avoid. Sometimes we want to accommodate. But all four of those innate factors are all ways for us to eliminate the conflict and get it over with as quick as we possibly can. So by our own nature, we all tend to want to get the negotiation over with as quick as we can. The other factor is cultural conditioning. All of us are so conditioned in this culture to appreciate smooth, fast, frictionless transactions that as soon as that process starts to slow down, it takes us out of our comfort zone. So cultural conditioning and human nature combined to make all of us leave a lot of money and value on the table over and over again without ever really realizing that we are. Because, one of the other interesting things about it is that at the end of the negotiation, it's not like there's a scoreboard that all of a sudden lights up and tells you how well you did or how well you didn't do. Nobody ever taps you on the shoulder after it's over and says, hey, buddy, I would have paid you an extra $10,000. Better luck next time, right? So we end up walking away feeling good, relieved, and satisfied because it's over, and then that's the only gauge that we've got, so we think we did pretty good. So over and over again, we repeat that same process, and over again, there's no scoreboard that's revealed to us about how much better we could have done. So the book and the training classes are really designed to help people get some insight as to what they're leaving behind and why they're doing it, and how they can create not only better deals for themselves, but for both parties in the negotiation, just by adopting a few habits that maybe they weren't even thinking about.
It's absolutely true. And when you say about the cultural side of it, and I'm going right back into, even Mexico or Kenya, wherever you are, in negotiating, it is a different culture. And it's really funny because, I watched, visitors go there, and, there's a tourist trap thing that happens, but they get very offended because it's like, no, it's going to be this many pesos. And then if you don't negotiate that, the people of that country get upset because now
they laugh at you.
And you can buy full price and walk away. They do kind of laugh at you, but they also really enjoy the negotiation because it's like, okay, maybe you're going to start with a rug that's $1,000, okay? And they would sit there and say, okay, it's 1,000. And if you don't come back saying no, 95, he's going to say no, it's 1,000 because of this. So they're using that as their scoreboard. And every time they go back and forth, it is that building of a relationship. They are saying something of value about that product. And it's the same way for the buyer. And so you develop this relationship going back and forth. And then everybody evens out at this point. And it's kind of getting past this almost Puritan outlook we have sometimes where it's like, it's bad to do business. It's bad to negotiate. Sometimes I just feel there's that, oh, no, we can't be doing that. It's about money. It's like an evil thing.
Right. I think those are such strong observations, too, And people probably don't realize that although getting involved in the negotiating process can be uncomfortable and take people out of their comfort zones, most of us for sure for the reasons that I described, but it really is a chance to build a relationship with someone, in through that dialogue. And you never know what the value of that relationship will be going into the future. In the same way I tell the story about my negotiation with the New York Jets in the first chapter of the book, relationship building is one of the really important things that you can gain in a negotiation that is not monetary at all, but has a great deal of value. And you don't even know how much value that might provide in the future.
Well, it's interesting, going back to your story of doing your own contract and getting your own deal with the New York Jets is pretty unheard of. That's what I was calling you. You're like your own Jerry Maguire out there.
Well, there's a reason for that, for it being unheard of. And I guess I am like Jerry Maguire without any of the cool at all that went along with the Jerry Maguire thing. It was a situation that I kind of found myself in for reasons that mainly had to do with the fact that a lot of agents didn't really believe in me. When I came out of Syracuse, I was an All-American, but the year that I came out, the NFL adopted a new rule. They were no longer going to be allowing teams to invite as many people into training camp as they wanted. They were now going to be limited to 85 players to invite to training camp. So the year that I came out, instead of, teams signing a lot of free agents like me, they ended up just trying to shed their roster of all those extra players, so there wasn't really anywhere for me to go. So the agents who were, excited to represent me around the time of the draft all disappeared when this rule came in place because everybody wanted to try and negotiate a contract, but nobody wanted to market and sell me because, there was a lot of work associated with that. So I actually didn't get signed to a team my first year out of football. Even though I was an All-American, I went home. I got a job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and every morning before work, I went to the gym. Every day at lunch, I took my tie off and trained on the football field. And every night after work, I closed the gym at midnight. I'd always ask myself the same question. Is there anybody in America who outworked you for this opportunity today? And, who could ever answer that question? But I wanted to be sure that I was setting the bar high, And so basically I spent that whole year training and preparing myself, and I saved the money that I made. I called every team in the league for tryouts, and 3 teams gave me a tryout, the Jets, the Cowboys, and the 49ers, but I had to spend my own dime to get there, and I sure did. I went to New York, I spent my own dime, had a good workout with the Jets, flew from there down to Dallas, had a good workout with the Cowboys in Texas Stadium on a Saturday. They invited me back to another workout on the following Monday, and on the Sunday in between, the general manager of the New York Jets called me and said, Kevin, we don't want you to work out with the Cowboys anymore. We want you to sign with the New York Jets, and that's where it began. But it was really born out of necessity because nobody else really wanted me. So.
Yeah, but you build yourself, you build value. I mean, it's interesting. You going and working your butt off every morning. I was reading that part of the book. I'm going, wow, this is something that, you just don't see many people really go for it. I mean, people think Nancy and I are nuts with 10 magazines and a tour and all of that. And how do we do it? I don't know if I would ever choose not to be like we are. There's that drive that has to be in there as well. And I think that is, we hold ourselves back from that a lot of times. Again, it's kind of like the negotiating thing. It's like, we hold ourselves back a lot.
Well, you guys clearly are nuts. Let's not, get that wrong, because let's see here. In the intro to this segment, you guys talked about on your show today negotiation, politics, the environment, wine and travel, sock monkeys, the little man on the map, folk rock, veterinary technology, spaying, neutering, young adults, and PMS. That's
I know.
a lot
Now
to
let's talk about negotiating.
You guys are
PMS.
truly amazing. Truly amazing what you're doing. And
well,
you're right.
You.
But, anything that you want to do, you guys said in the beginning, go big or go home. And I'm from that same school, you know what I mean? And you're going to get knocked around a bunch. You've mentioned Andrew Martoni on this show already a couple of times. And Andrew, as you know, is one of my favorite people in the world. And
awesome.
his 8 keys of success is number 2, right? Failure leads to success. And there's just no other way. You might get lucky, but it's probably not going to be that way. You're going to have to, bump your head on the learning curve a bunch and keep your resolve to get where you need to be. There's just no shortcuts.
I absolutely agree with you on that, because at the end of the day, to me, people now, let's look at politics. Everybody's got their rant and they're carrying on. People are having their wars with each other on Facebook and Twitter. Instead of, sometimes I'm like, go educate yourself. Say something, do something. Just do something. Don't sit back. It's kind of like, yeah, you could be wrong, but who cares? Who cares?
You'll find out.
I truly, I've got Nancy here, and Andrew, I know you're listening. Nancy has a whip too, okay? but at the end, and it's interesting because you put so many hours into something, and so you really have those choices, those decisions you make for yourself. And going to the music side, I remember one of my musician friends, they charged their fee to go and play at a nightclub or something. I can't remember what it was. And someone said, "What? You're going to do $600 for one person playing?" And they're going, it's not just that one gig. It is all the rehearsals you've done since you picked up your instrument.
Right.
That's what you're getting paid for. Isn't that part of the value system too?
Yeah, that's such an important observation, because I think our culture, has gotten caught up in watching people on television or movies or musicians, and it just looks like they appear overnight, and that it's just this stroke of luck or whatever it is, and they don't see all that goes in behind the scenes to those things. And you have to appreciate and respect anybody who is able to overcome those odds and persist through a lot of adversity and be able to achieve something. And I think everybody in their heart wants to be able to do those things.
I do too. And one thing I want to talk about in regards to negotiation is that you talk about negotiating is a two-way street pretty much. It's not just here, I'm going to negotiate, I'm going to go into a car dealership and negotiate the best deal. It's got to be both ways. You gave a really good example of a company that suddenly, wait a minute, if they were reliant on one source for their product, for manufacturing, and suddenly, now you've got a monopoly. Now, doesn't that sound familiar with some things in the world today? Monopolies happening, but you think you have one. But you can create these strategies around that, and that's where negotiating skills, even though you're a client to someone, there's this negotiation that goes between both parties. You can pull yourself out of that situation, and at the other end of the day, the monopoly person's going to learn something too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that probably a lot of times today, especially if you're talking about politics and other things, I mean, maybe we tend to create monopolies that work against us at sometimes, you know. But the reality is you always have more power than you think. And even when you feel backed against the wall and you're dealing with, you know, a sole source situation as the one that I described in the book, you know, you always have the ability to create options and to create choice. You're never really totally in a corner. You just sometimes have to think more creatively about how to solve your problem and how to create competition for that one source. And surprisingly, there's often a lot of things that you can find that look pretty attractive if you just give it a little bit of thought.
Well, it's good, you know, to be pushed to the wall, because that's when you have to really think. Because I think a lot of times we're so busy we don't think through our day. We react and we perform, but we maybe don't think. And when you push against the wall, you suddenly realize maybe it would dawn on you that forming a company where there's only one supplier for the thing you need isn't that smart. You know, maybe you should have thought about that in the first place. and no, seriously. So now you push against the wall before it's too late. You know, there's some little jabs at you going, okay, you know, we're going to keep raising the price because we know that you're in a bind here. It's good to be pushed so that you can think and find plan A, B, C, or D, because you're going to need it somewhere along the line. So, you know, whenever Lisa and I do something, we always have plan. We learned in Africa, you need a plan A, B, C, and D.
Yes, and you talk about that in your book. That's what I started cheering. I'm like, okay, great. You know, I'm never going to go to sleep reading this book, you know, because I was telling you earlier, I geek out on stuff like this, and your book is a geek out book. You know, and it's easy to read, like I was saying. You know, I'm blonde, you know, so I need easy stuff in front of me, especially at night when I do all my reading. But your book, because you use such great examples, again, it's so easy. You know, suddenly it's 2 a.m. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm making plan B on this over here. You know, I'm going, ooh.
Well, you know, it's great if we can, you know, think through things enough ahead of time to anticipate all the things that could go wrong and build in strategies for them. I know that's not my experience. I am, you know, have made plenty of mistakes, and my life moves fast. You know, I've got my business, and I've got 4 kids, and I'm coaching sports teams, and, you know, there's plenty of times when I look back on something, I think, man, how did I miss that? You know, I should have seen that before, and I guess maybe all of us do that because 2020 is hindsight, right? But I think that, you know, if we're talking about the book gives you some strategies to deal with any situation that you might find yourself in and allow yourself to come out with a better deal, to build stronger relationships, and to create even new mutual value at the same time. So whatever situation you find yourself in, I think that there's tools in here that will help people. And that was one of the things I was most excited about. And you guys mentioned this early on in the call, that the book's not just for business people. I mean, one of the greatest, you know, parts of the satisfaction I've got out of, you know, training and coaching and writing this book on negotiation is how people have told me how they've used this book in their personal life to solve major problems. A woman told me that, you know, she had lost her husband and they had lost income, and she was about to lose her family farm and was able to use the skills and the tools that she learned to save her family farm. And those kind of things are the things that I love, because sometimes you find yourself in a situation that life just threw you into and you have no idea how you got there, you know, but you got to have the tools to get out because you can't stay there, right?
Yep. Go live in Africa and see what happens.
Oh, well, can't even imagine that.
No, but it's true. You go, oh, it's time to go now.
Oh, hello.
but you know, and I know you've done so many seminars now. Do you still do that right now? Do you go around and speak, or, you know, or did you write the book so you don't go around speaking? I know you've got some videos on YouTube, I think, which is great. It's a great tool as well for people.
No, I still go around and do quite a bit of speaking and consulting. Of course, my larger consulting business focuses on more than negotiating, but negotiating has always been sort of the root of it all, the core of it all. But one of the reasons I wrote the book is because, you know, from a business perspective, it's great to get more exposure, right? Okay? Mm-hmm. But from another standpoint, there's a lot of times when people do come up to me and they say, how do I handle this, you know, negotiation? I think to myself, well, I'd love to put you in a 2-day seminar, but, you know, that's not going to happen. So here, now I can say, read this book first, and then come back and talk to me, right? So it's I like that there's a reference there that I can share with somebody who needs it when they need it, where I don't have to talk to them for 2 days first, you know?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
No, I think this
gives them
great.
time to think too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's excellent.
I think it's one of the books, you know, where people can go back and forth, you know, through their business and life career. You know, they can, hey, you know, I've got to just have that refresher. You know, that's why I was saying I geek out on books like this, because to me, you know, as an entrepreneur, you know, we're two people doing this. You've got to keep informed. You've got to have some kind of system. And I think the more you read and the more you involve yourself in education as a business owner and an entrepreneur, the better you're going to be. And it's going to keep it's part of honing your skills, you know. You know about that, being a football player. You know,
right.
You got to keep training, right?
Right, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You know, I have a T-shirt that says there is no off season, you know, and that's the truth. You got to keep training.
Oh, wow. That's true, huh? I have no clue other than, you know, people hurt themselves more than the football players because they haven't exercised and they watch the Super Bowl and they jump off the couch and hurt themselves.
Yes, that's not pretty.
No. So now, and then do you help people, though, one-on-one, different corporations? Because I was looking at the list of people that you've trained, and it's huge.
Yeah. Sometimes it is done, you know, in a coaching encounter where someone's got a large negotiation going on, and you know, it's often best for them to be able to come out of their negotiation from time to time and sit down and talk to me and tell me what's going on, and you know, have them be able to bounce those ideas off of me, and you know, just have a dialogue. Because a lot of times you need a coach in that situation, and most people don't really know how to coach in that situation. So coaching, training, and now the book are all different ways that those ideas can be shared for people who are negotiating pretty much anything and need to get their best deal on it.
Do you think that when you look at corporate America, there's corporate America and then there's corporate America. There is a culture that I think is shifting. I think people are starting to think, wait a minute, you know, consumers are, you know, doing things with their dollars. They're voting necessarily. They're saying, wait a minute, I want organic or whatever it is. When you start looking at the environment and things like that, do you see businesses really changing up in what they're doing? And there's that negotiation between their clients saying, wait a minute, I'm not spending money on you anymore because you're not doing business in the way that I like it anymore.
Well, I think every business today is being pressed to be a faster, smarter company, you know, and in all the ways that definition could apply. And it's year to year. And I think that we have to learn to negotiate in a way that reflects that as well. And from a customer standpoint, who's negotiating with a vendor, the negotiating skills can help you to work with that vendor in a way that compels them to be faster and smarter each year in a partnering kind of a way, but also allow you to get your best deal in the process. Now, from a customer standpoint, you know, you've got to be forward, or from a sales standpoint, you've got to be forward thinking about your customers. You've got to be thinking not only about making your business faster and smarter, but you've got to be thinking about how to make your customers' business faster and smarter as well. And negotiating applies in this sense because it's the way in which you can share those ideas and that value in your sales process and help to generate higher value for what you're selling.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the things that I think about your book that it may sound a little off target, but I think this is a really good book for people looking for a job.
Absolutely.
I really think that right now when there's so many people unemployed, that part of the problem with job interviews is they don't know how to negotiate or present themselves properly. And I think that knowing who you are, what value you can bring, and knowing the company you're applying to, reading this book could be a really good strategy.
Yeah, I think so too, and I hope that is true for people who are looking for jobs, because all of us in negotiations tend to go in and focus more on the pressure that we have in a situation than the pressure that the other party has, and that tends to make us feel a little less powerful than maybe we really are. And I think that definitely applies in a job situation when you know that the job market is tough and you need a job, and you're watching your savings dwindle down, and yet your mortgage still is due, and those kind of things. And you feel like this company, you know, has plenty of options and lots of resumes and lots of people for looking for work, and why would they choose you? And so it's easy to go into that situation and feel less powerful and to forget the value that you bring to the table that's unique and relevant. And I think that the book, in that way, I think it is a tool for empowering you to help you remember that you do always have more power than you think, and in those situations, that you can be successful in those situations.
Kevin, before you go, one thing I wanted to also touch on is now with social media and the world of the Internet, and that's the other Greek world, right? But do you see now that the business and consumer relationship developing into something stronger? You know, so I know this is, again, going back to negotiating, because now you're building this relationship where you are doing things through Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that and websites where we didn't have that before. But now because of the Internet, this is a way to use that as a negotiating tool as well. I mean, even I've watched people, you know, go off on a company they're mad at, and start, you know, trashing them on Twitter. Sometimes they get their need fulfilled at that point if they're, you know, a disservice was done to them from another business. But you see it work both ways, where there's the sharing of knowledge of a company or whatever it is, even in non-profits. You know, you see that as well.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I remember a couple of years ago when there was the musician, right, from Atlantic, Canada, who had his guitar broken on a United flight. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
he wrote a song called United Breaks Guitars, and it had 7 or 8 million views, and it's still on YouTube racking up the numbers. And United never really did quite respond to that probably the way that they should have, or as soon as they should have. But, you know, social media and the Internet, it changes absolutely everything. And, you know, people who don't even necessarily have a really relevant beef can go out there on Rip Off Report or any of these sites and make whatever claim they want to, and it's really difficult for a company to take those things down. So from that standpoint, yes, I think companies are being held hostage a little bit, if you look at it that way, or the customer's got a much larger voice to be able to express their, you know, displeasure with something. So, yeah, it definitely relates to negotiating. And on the more positive side, I think that social media is allowing businesses to build relationships, you know, in a way that was never possible before. But I think that the negotiating component, at least for now, is still most effectively done one-to-one when you can connect with a person, because, you know, it really is an interpersonal skill. And you can use the web in an, you know, instant messenger format or video format or something, but tone of voice and eye contact and those things are still so relevant, you know. And so I think that if the negotiation is important enough, you got to be face-to-face. And if it's one notch less than super important, then you still got to get on the phone or be able to look somebody in the eye to really make the difference you want to make.
Now you know why we're on a 5-year tour for the parks.
That's right.
You know,
we figured that out.
You know, and I'll tell you what, going, you know, town to town, speaking to people one-on-one, you really understand a community so much better, and you understand how the community was built, and you understand, you know, the concerns of a national park, you know, facing budget issues, or, you know, like we're going to talk about the drilling, you know, you understand that so much more. You know, we do radio, you know, and hopefully we'll meet you in person too, Kevin, because I think that's what it is all about, is meeting everybody and talking with them one-on-one and really being able to see, you know, there's just nothing better than that.
Well, we find ourselves naturally speaking about, even the people that we do represent in our magazines, we naturally speak of them at the right time in the right conversation because we're in front of somebody and we can help them with something. It just comes.
They're not a name on a piece of paper,
right? Yeah, we can talk, and just by towns that we visit and national parks, we can talk about it if we've been there. It's really hard to talk about a place you've never been.
So true. So true.
Yeah. So negotiating. I mean, that's just like you say. It's a relationship. And I agree with you, especially when you're talking about something really, really important.
Mm-hmm. And it's body language, too, Kevin. That's the whole part of it as well.
You're right.
Body language.
Absolutely.
Right
Absolutely.
on. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kevin. This has been fun. So we hope that when we do meet you that you'll give us a football lesson.
Well, I'll try not to be the guy that hurts himself jumping off the couch in the process.
Well,
but
I don't think you will be.
Let me just say this, you guys, real quick as we close, too. You know, I just want to say I'm so impressed by you guys. I mean, the adversity that you've overcome, the insights that you bring to such a wide spectrum of topics, you know, your ability to have such enthusiasm for the people that you interview. You guys are very impressive, and I really am a big fan of what you're doing. So thank you very much for allowing me the honor of being on your show.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We've had a blast, and we love your book. We really do, and definitely we got to thank Andrew Martoni, and I have to thank him too because he's a sponsor of our tour.
Yes,
the little man in the map.
Yes.
He sponsors all the coloring in pages we do for kids for the national parks. So I think that totally rocks.
Yeah.
One of the best guys you'll ever meet in your life.
Yeah, he's awesome. So, and he's going to be on our Champagne Sunday show on Sunday. So
he's a lot of fun, but he should stay away from Irma's computer.
You're going to get in trouble. The whip is coming out. So, Kevin, I know
good.
You've got two websites. You've got negotiatingtraining.com, and then you have iBreakthrough.com. And I always want people to go directly to the author's website so they, again, get to actually know who you are. I know it's on Amazon, all those great online stores, but iBreakthrough is the best one for the book, right?
iBreakthrough is actually the larger consulting entity for, sales, marketing, and business execution. And negotiatingtraining.com is the one that we built specifically to promote the book and the training classes on negotiation. So either one is fine. I think they both have links to Amazon, but of course you can find it on Amazon directly as well.
All right, everybody, again, the book is by Kevin Greene, and it's iBreakthrough Negotiating. Discover how you can negotiate your way to greater overall success, personally and professionally, one agreement at a time. Thanks so much, Kevin. You enjoy the rest of your day. I was going to say, just go rock on, dude.
Thanks so much, you guys. You're great. I appreciate you.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.